Here's the million-dollar question. How do men like us reach our full potential and grow into the men we dream of being while taking care of our responsibilities, working, being good husbands, fathers, and still take care of ourselves? That's the question, and this podcast will help you with those answers. My name is Brent, and welcome to the Fallible Man Podcast. What up, Fallible Nation? And for all of our first-time listeners, people who are joining us for the first time today, my name is Brent. I am the Fallible Man, and welcome to the Fallible Man Podcast, your home for all things man, husband, and father. And I have a question for you to weigh today. What is an alpha male? Is this a real thing, or is it just some nonsense? What makes a male, quote-unquote, alpha? This garbage discussion that's going on the internet is doing as much damage to men as the idea of toxic masculinity. That bullshit that's been spewed for way too long. But this isn't doing us any more favors. I was watching a video recently by one of my favorite YouTubers, Michelle McDaniel, over on My Thoughts Will Probably Offend You.
Hi guys, my name is Michelle McDaniel and welcome to me ranting about things that I see on the internet that are stupid.
Learning what an alpha male is from the real men of the internet. And she had some really great points. Now, if you aren't familiar with Michelle's work, I don't know that I'm surprised. Michelle is a personal trainer, but she mainly talks about weight issues and general health. And she's not for everybody. I like controversial people, and Michelle will certainly step on toes. That is why her channel is called My Thoughts Will Probably Offend You, because she promises to offend at least one person during the course of the video. But I weighed this out in my head as I was watching this video, and I wanted to dig into this a little bit and touch on some of her questions, because they deserve answers. And in fact, we all do. Now, let me be the first one to admit that I may have used the term alpha male offhand and out of context, mainly because it has such an ambiguous concept behind it. It literally has been redefined from person to person that uses it. In fact, there's not probably a legitimate definition for the way it's being used most of the time in quote unquote men's videos. And I just finished a deep dive on what is masculinity and what are men with Townsend Russell over on the 100% Dad podcast that actually came out Saturday last week. You guys can go over to his YouTube channel or look up the 100% Dad podcast and see my guest spot there if you want to check that out. Be sure and check out what Townsend's doing. It's amazing, but it was a privilege to be a guest on his podcast. I had a lot of fun. There is some great imagery that comes to mind when we talk about masculinity, right? Who could forget the classic John Wayne image? It's the whole reason I shop at Sportsman's Warehouse, because the first one I ever walked into, and pretty much every Sportsman's Warehouse I ever walked into after that, had a giant leather matted picture of the Duke. And I walked in and went, this is a good store for me. But any number of 80s action stars fit this classic alpha male, super hyper masculine image that we come up with in our head. And then you got guys like Humphrey Bogart, Frank Sinatra, and James Dean. And you know what? Let's take it off an individual person and just look at the imagery, right? Let's not forget the idea of loggers and bikers and soldiers and craftsmen. We picture the blacksmith pounding away on raw steel. Or who could forget the Viking imagery, right? Now, Michelle actually shared a specific YouTuber that is screaming, quite literally, nonsense about what an alpha is, who is really just a big salesman. And I'll be nice and won't name this YouTuber. His channels are way bigger than mine. I don't actually care because I think the guy's a flaming idiot. But he was literally screaming at the camera about being an alpha male. And this guy is essentially pimping health and personal hygiene habits to move his products and to sell to young, impressionable men a specific lifestyle or image. In fact, if you look up the guy's history, he's made his fortune jumping from niche to niche, and he's just got a really good sales pitch. He doesn't fit any of the above imagery, but was going on and on about being alpha. So maybe you don't have to fit the quote unquote imagery to be an alpha. He even put an image of himself eating raw meat on the thumbnail of his video. What the hell does raw meat have to do with being a man or being alpha? I don't get it. If this is what she's seen, I understand why she's confused and the frustration. Michelle also pulled up a definition of alpha male personalities via Google. And I'll try and put the screenshot in the video, guys. I'm sorry if you're listening. I can't put that image, but I do have it for you. And I totally disagree with this. This is what Google defined as alpha male personality. Per Google, he's a macho guy who exudes confidence with a tad bit of aggression, who is outgoing and demanding and definitely very sexist. That in no way means he objectifies women, but he knows for a fact that he can get any women he wishes. What a load of crap that is. I read that and then I looked at the sourcing and was shocked to see this from a quote unquote men's website. And it makes me really wonder, is it a men's website? Who's writing these articles? But I totally disagree with that. But this is the imagery that is being portrayed in some places on the internet by some influencers on TikTok and Instagram and Facebook and YouTube about the alpha imagery. But let's keep going with the imagery. When we talk about alphas, we frequently see images of lions and wolves. And while I love some of the imagery, let's face it, I do. If you've seen many of my videos, you might have noticed I have a lion tattoo. If you look at my older videos, behind me, I have a picture of a lion that I absolutely love. My wife bought for me. But I love the imagery of lions, period. It has nothing to do with the whole alpha thing. But let's be real. Male lions are a great image of raw power and fierce beauty. But they suck as providers and presiders. The only help out they are in any real situation is if they're in danger of losing their pride, then they get really protective about protecting their women. But basically, they may lays around and every now and then protect their land or their pride. But the women do a great deal of work. And I'm not sure that is the ideal of an alpha male. I certainly don't consider that a real man. If you follow this channel at all, that is not an acceptable role for men as far as I'm concerned. Now, sure, you don't want to fight one and they don't have to declare who they are, but they're wanting in a lot of areas. And as much as I love the imagery of a lion, they're just the dominant predator in their world, but they are wanting as far as a lot of other ideals that we consider to be men ideals. And we'll get into that in a minute. The imagery just limits the true idea of alpha to brute power. Now we look at the wolf imagery. Wolves are amazing, but a pack leader or the alpha of a pack, which is the proper usage of that term, knows his strength is in the pack. This whole lone wolf imagery is ridiculous because it doesn't happen. Lone wolves die. They got that right in Game of Thrones. All in all, it's a better ideal than lions, but it's far from perfect. And like men, better in a pack than as a solo act, even though we like to idolize that lone wolf nonsense. However, this is at least comes closer to the idea of a capable man who provides for his family and cares for them, because wolves tend to mate for life, as far as I know. That's what I was taught. Maybe I'm wrong. You can fact check me in the comment section. But it's still a massive stretch. But hey, let's jump on from there, because right now we're looking at what people are projecting this alpha male imagery and nonsense that people are screaming about. And I believe in men being men. I think there's a lot of nonsense, and other people are looking at that and it's not helping us. Like the buzz phrase of returning to when men are not what they quote unquote used to be. She brought up a really valid point, because what time period are we talking about? When were men? You hear it in my age group, so we have to go back before that, because I'm 42. So we have to go back before that with the same question. So we got to go back before the baby boomers, maybe before the silent generation, maybe to what's called the greatest generation. Right, that was my grandparents. And they're the ones who fought in World War II and survived the Great Depression and built the United States as we know it. So are we talking about that? Because if we're talking about 40s and 50s, there were some great qualities for sure in that time period, but there was also a lot of crap. Like in the 40s and 50s, domestic abuse was perfectly legitimate. It was considered a family issue. Police wouldn't respond to that. Men could beat their wives all they wanted to. That certainly is not ideal as a man, as far as I'm concerned. So maybe we got to go back farther than that. How about westward expansion? Early settlers, maybe? We like cowboys. Westward expansion was good. I'm not sure we're going to call those men were men. The men weren't real involved with raising the children. They certainly didn't treat women well. Yeah, I mean, we get a lot of romantic imagery about the lone gunman, but that's all crap too. So let's go back. Earlier settlers, I don't know, maybe medieval times. Maybe all the way back to cavemen, right? Because the guy in the video she was talking about, and he's just one example, guys. He's just the one I'm going to pick on since I watched her video and was inspired by her video. So I looked into what she was looking into. And it's not the only example. And this guy is by far not the cringiest person ever, but he's up there. He was big into, let's go back to our roots. Let's go back to being primitive. What exactly about cavemen was alpha? They lived short lives. They lived lives entirely inspired by need and necessity. And he even tried to pimp the paleo diet. Now, look, there's nothing wrong with the paleo diet if you like the paleo diet. If that works for you, that's absolutely fine. I'm a huge fan of the diet that works for you and you can stick to is precisely what you should be doing. But, okay, the paleo diet as defined by modern times, research has proven that is not how cavemen eat. Cavemen actually ate a fairly balanced diet of fat, protein, and carbohydrates. Yes, carbohydrates split almost in thirds. They're all in the 30 percentile to make 100%. So the paleo diet doesn't hold up as a going back to our roots kind of thing necessarily. So there's a lot of confusion about what this actually looks like. Let's face it, the truth is no one generation has been perfect. And I'm not sure we can put our fingers on one group as ideal or when men were men without having to go a little tongue in cheek there, because it's just not accurate. What it boils down to is there are specific traits that were more prevalent in certain eras that we see as a more ideal with our current perspective on life. The way we look at things now, the way we look at things from our perspective right here in 2022 throughout history, because that shapes how we look at things. There wasn't a perfect generation. There wasn't a when men were men. There are ideals out of multiple generations that we idolize and put together into this super hyped alpha male, real men kind of thing. As someone trying to as someone trying to legitimately encourage men to reach for their best selves, idiots like she was talking about and referring to screaming about being alpha are driving me insane. She even shared a conference I'm familiar with, and I'm familiar with the 21 conference, but listening to some of the speakers in their conference, there have been definite times where I've listened to their speakers and been like, what load of crap is this? Some of the things they espouse as ideals are just like, totally don't go with my values, my beliefs about men, about life. And so maybe it's an ethical question, right? It's a personal ethical question. But some of the speakers they've had on there, some of the things they say are just like, what's wrong with you people? So if this is what people are being fed as alpha male, that's a problem. Like I said in the beginning, it's doing as much damage as the idea of toxic masculinity. It is adding more confusion because, as I've said in the past, we can't ever seem to settle on middle ground. We have to swing the pendulum from one side to the other. We never come to rest in the middle. And so we have men trying to go to the extreme opposite of the extreme feminist. I get nothing wrong with feminism. With feminist or feminism. I have a problem with extreme feminists who want to go to an extreme. I have 7 nieces. I have 2 daughters. I have a boatload of women in my life that are very close to me, important to me. I'm all for equal rights for women. I'm also for equal rights for men. And we have this, and that's what But this alpha male mentality that they're trying to pimp on social media is the exact extreme opposite of extreme feminism. That's not healthy either. So let's talk about men and see if we can address some of Michelle's thoughts, because they're really valid. And it sounds like we really need to clear this up, not just for women, but we need to clear this up for other men. Now, do I have all the answers? Of course not. Am I on my own journey? Yes. But it's time to put the brakes on some of this nonsense. Now, guys, we're going to get into what men actually should look like in the next half of the show, guys. We're going to roll to a sponsor, and we'll be right back after this. I'm calling on all men right now to stand up and stand against this horrific crime. It is estimated that over 300,000 children are being sex trafficked in the United States alone every single day. I want you to get on your social media. I want you to follow savinginnocence.org or fightforme.net. Both of these charities are working to end child trafficking in the United States and abroad. You can donate at www.thefallibleman.com/shop and buy our Inhuman Trafficking merchandise, and all proceeds will be given indefinitely to savinginnocence.org. You can also go to www.savinginnocence.org/donate and donate directly to Saving Innocence. Men, it is time for us to fight and stop this horrible thing known as human trafficking. Welcome back, guys. We're talking about alpha male nonsense, and my thoughts will probably offend you on this. Michelle, if you ever hear this, please know I hold you in high regard and have the utmost respect for you. I'm not trying to make fun. I was actually honestly motivated and inspired by the video you did, because I think it asks some legitimate, real questions. So if you see this, know this is in best intentions, and I hope you're flattered, because that's the way I mean it. Now, in the first part of the show, we tore over this overhyped yet unclearly defined archetype because it's so ambiguously defined. Michelle McDaniel from My Thoughts Will Probably Offend You made a great video on this, and it brought up some really valid thoughts and points about what is a alpha male, what is a male, because we throw that around, that I referenced in the first half of the show, and I'll link that video for her that she did in the show notes and in the description, depending on what platform you're listening to this or watching this on. Her video is on YouTube exclusively, whereas if you're listening to this on the podcast, you'd have to jump to YouTube to watch that, but I will have a link for you. So in this half of the show, I want to break it down better and answer some of her concerns and questions, or at least do my best to do so. So what is this ideal, and is it actually ideal? We talked about what a pain it is, but let's eliminate some of the nonsense to start off. Now, I'm a fairly large 6-foot man who is stronger than the average man, not my own boast, but according to scientific studies of average strength. So I'm a little bit stronger than the average guy. I'm 6 foot. I have this amazing beard, or at least I think is an amazing beard. And I have great hair that my daughters picked out the hairstyle. Yeah, I have some lion imagery. Like I have a lion tattoo on my shoulder. I have other tattoos. I like lions. I like wolves. Guess I'm weird. I ride a motorcycle. My first job in life, I was a professional cowboy. I literally pushed cattle on horseback, gun and rope, the whole 9 yards in central Wyoming. I served in the military. I drink straight bourbon, and I like it. I don't drink it for show. I smoke cigars. I'm more than passable with power tools and generally fairly handy at building things. I check all these man boxes. And none of these things makes me an alpha male or manlier per se than you or anyone else. Do they? I don't necessarily think so. I guess it kind of goes back to who's defining manly or masculinity or what, but I don't necessarily think it does. In fact, you know what else? I also cook better than a lot of people. That is a boast. I am an incredible cook, and I'm an incredible cook because I learned how to do it and I took the time because I love to cook. I appreciate a great Chianti, which is a very dry wine from Italy. I like classical music as well as heavy metal. I love everything from Beethoven to Five Finger Death Punch and a bunch of stuff in between. I can sew and iron my own clothes. I do art projects and I can braid hair with the best of them. I attend tea parties with my daughters. I know how to properly apply makeup for men and for women. Past theater nerd. Lots of love, Michelle. Past theater nerd. So I have a lot of talents that people somehow associate with femininity. Now, I think men should be able to do all those things. If you can't cook, sew, iron, clean your own clothes, and take care of yourself, stick around on the channel. I got more stuff to help you out because you should be able to. And I don't know whoever is floating this nonsense about little boys playing with kitchen sets being turned gay, because apparently that's a thing out there on the internet. According to the internet, if you let little boys in an impressionable age group play with kitchen play sets like my daughters had, then they turn gay. That is the stupidest crap I've ever heard. And whoever's pushing this nonsense needs to step into reality. They're stupid. I'm just going to put that out there. They're stupid. Men should be able to cook. A toy is not changing someone's sexual preference. It's the whole idea of it is right there with violent video games make people violent, movies make people violent. Firearms kill people by themselves just by existing. And I'll stop there before I get political and say some mean stuff. But you get the point, guys. It's a retarded concept. I don't know who's pushing that, but they're ridiculous and it's dumb and they got to stop. It's just bad. Okay. You're hurting the cause of men by being that stupid. Now, we got rid of the nonsense. We talked about all the crap where people are going over the top with alphaness. And then we got rid of the nonsense because none of that defines whether you are an alpha male. So let me share my opinion. And if it offends you, great. If not, take it to heart. It's my opinion that a lot of what we define as quote unquote an alpha male characteristic, not the BS definition that we got from Google in the first half of the show, is rooted in a combination of three things, guys. The ideal of real men, great leaders, and strong achievers. Now, I've said it in the past, and I'll say it again, and I will scream from the top of my lungs. Being masculine or masculine, the concept of masculine is a cocktail of hormones and genes. Women can have masculine traits both physically, emotionally, and mentally. It has to do with testosterone they're exposed to in the womb and all kinds of stuff that I don't really understand. But we've all known a woman who had a strong square jawline that we generally associate with men. We've all met women who can put on muscle easier than other women can. Okay? That was hormones in their body. They have a little more of the hormones that quote unquote make us masculine. Being male is a matter of biology. I don't care if you like that or not. It's a fact. Being a man is a choice in how you live. Masculinity, as we know it, is a combination of all three things. Biological men who have chosen to live as real men who have a masculine cocktail of hormones. That's masculinity. So let's define some things. What is a real man? Now, this gets defined as randomly as alpha men. So let's try and actually get a really legitimate idea of what a real man is. Feel free to disagree with me, comment, let me know. I love to hear from you guys. Real men treat people with respect unless they have earned a reason to not be treated with respect. From the get-go, men treat people with respect unless they have demonstrated that they need to be treated another way. All people. You don't have to like them. You don't have to get along with them. But men respect people. Men, real men, take ownership of their choices, actions, and responsibilities. Real men live with integrity, honor, and discipline. Real men choose to grow and improve continually because they understand as they mature that there is always more to learn and improve upon. Real men lead by example. Real men care for those who need their assistance. They can be compassionate. They can have empathy. Yes, real men have emotions too. We just control them. Real men stand for those who cannot stand for themselves because that is one of the many roles of men. Now, most other things are implied in or governed by these core traits, and I don't want to bore you to death by going on and on forever. Now, let's look at great leaders. Once again, my opinion, you're welcome to challenge that or, hey, let's have a healthy conversation. I love to do that. Great leaders are selfless. I'm not talking every leader. I'm talking great leaders are selfless. They put other people ahead of themselves, the people they're supposed to be leading. Great leaders lead by example, or lead from the front, however you want to say that. Great leaders act with humility. Great leaders empower others to use their gifts and their strengths. Great leaders act with integrity, honor, and discipline. And great leaders move decisively because that's important. Seeing some overlap here? Seeing why it gets blurred? How about strong achievers? Strong achievers are driven. They're focused. They embrace growth because that helps them achieve more. They move decisively and they're disciplined in what they're doing. Now, it's easy to see with some overlap there that these people get mixed up some, or these three groups get mixed up. I know a lot of women who are great leaders and strong achievers. Some are both, some are one or the other. And you can learn to be both those things. Okay, it's not a uniquely male characteristic. However, the idea of the ideal alpha male that we like to embrace in modern culture seems to be somewhere in the marriage of these three things from my point of view. Now, there are some characteristics that are harder to flesh out. For example, there is an essence that comes with men who are considered quote unquote alpha. And most of the blowhards talking about being alpha don't have this essence. It's one of the few liony images. Is liony a word? I don't know. I probably just blew that one out. It's one of the few lion imagery pictures that I truly and simply love, is that a lion doesn't have to advertise as a lion. No zebra is walking by a lion and goes, I wonder if that's a hyena. You know what? I bet that's a gazelle. Okay? A lion doesn't have to advertise. It just is, and everything around it is. Those people who would truly consider quote unquote alphas, who have that aura about them, don't have to say so. And most of the ones who are ranting about their alpha are the farthest things from it. If that is indeed a real thing. How about, hey, I'm a real man. If you have to scream about it, you're probably not. That's just how it works. I've had the extreme privilege of knowing some incredible men over the years. There is a quiet presence that emits from a confidence and power of certain kinds of men that you can't fake. It doesn't require a specific physicality. It is not indicative of their nature to advertise necessarily. This is often taken as an alpha trait, but it does not even signify that it's an alpha trait. It doesn't signify anything other than their presence. I've known men like this who were not real alphas, not really what I would call real men in the way they conduct their lives. So there's that presence, and we can associate that as an alpha characteristic. Some men just have an air about them. I've known some Navy SEALs who were average height. They didn't stick out, but man, you could just breathe the air around them and you knew there was something that stood out about them. Did they live the rest of their life that way? I don't know. Did that make them an alpha man? Not necessarily. It doesn't fit any of the other pictures. So maybe alpha is simply whatever you want to pretend it is. Maybe it's not a defined thing because it's not a real thing. Is this nonsense men screaming about on the internet really a thing? Maybe it's nonsense entirely. Maybe it is something. Maybe alpha male is a thing. But I've known a lot of men, and I don't know that it is. I don't know that it isn't. But I don't think what people are screaming about as alpha male or I'll teach you to be alpha male on the internet is a real thing. I think is a sales job. Is quote unquote alpha male, being an alpha male, a combination of things? Maybe. Should you take advice from anyone trying to sell you anything, including an image, an ideal, or a lifestyle? No, not really. Okay. And that includes me. I'm not trying to sell you a lifestyle. I want to encourage you to be the men you can be. I want to encourage you to reach for your potential, for your benefit, and because it does benefit the rest of the world, but mainly for your benefit, because you should see what your potential is. I'm not trying to sell you anything. If you want to buy my merch, great. If you don't want to buy my merch, great. I don't care. Okay? I still be doing this podcast and I still be making videos because I believe that we need to have other men to have these conversations with. I want to build a place where men can have these conversations and meet with other men who have goals and no one to share them with, who have aspirations and no one else in their circle is talking about getting better or growing or maybe starting a business or being a better dad. I want to be a place for men to have conversations with men that they're not necessarily surrounded by, because that's how you grow. So what should men strive for? I think men should strive to be real men, as we described earlier, and developing your leadership skills because they're good skills to have, and striving to be an achiever. I think being an achiever is a great thing. It's easier to, achieve. Can we be just that plain about it? If you're an achiever, I think men should strive for a healthy life that is rich emotionally, mentally, and possibly spiritually. And by that health, by saying healthy life, I also imply physically healthy. Okay. Now, if you want to combine the best parts of those three things that we talked about, an achiever, a leader, a real man, and deem that as alpha, that's your right. I'm not saying that's what it is. I am saying beware anyone trying to sell you a line of crap about, I can sell you an alpha lifestyle. This is an alpha lifestyle. It's not necessarily a real thing. It's not necessarily an ideal that you should embrace, because every Tom, Dick, and Harry has a different definition of what that looks like. Focus on being the best version of you. You don't have to buy anything to be the best version of you. You don't have to buy someone's program. You don't have to buy someone's crap. You don't have to buy a certain lifestyle to be the best version of yourself or to be the man that you want to be. You just have to work on growing as a person, which you owe to yourself anyway. The guys screaming about being alpha are going back to the good old days. Yeah, there are some traits from certain generations that I hold in esteem. I think men should provide and take care of their families to the best of their abilities. I think men should honor the marriage bed. I think men should treasure their children and work to be incredible fathers and set examples for them and love them and care for them and encourage them and raise them in a positive life. Be part of that solution. We have too many fatherless homes. I think that men should control their emotions. I think they have emotions. In fact, I'll tell you, we all have emotions. I don't think you should bury those emotions. I do think you should have control over them and not let them rule you. Take that from stoicism, where whatever you want to, just take that from common sense. All right. There are some great things that have come from previous generations. There's also a load of crap that has come from previous generations. The secret to being the best men, to being real men, is to seek the very best version of yourself in all the things you do, in all the aspects of your life. It is a lifelong pursuit that you can achieve, and you owe it to yourself to find out. We're here to help be a part of that, journey, to help encourage you along that, to give you men to talk to and men to hang out with who are all trying to grow, because that helps in that journey. But guys, stay away from the alpha screamers. Half of them have no idea what an alpha is. Okay. The term is generally ascribed to the Darwinian theory. Okay. Most of that was crap anyway. So you're not a wolf. You're not a lion. You're a human being. You have responsibilities and you have characteristics that animals have no understanding of. Be a good man. Focus every day on being a good man. That makes you alpha in my book. Guys, thanks for listening. Michelle, if you hear this, I hope that you enjoyed it and that you take it as the compliment it's meant to be. I hope it gave you some answers from the awful crap that you're getting exposed to. But you're a YouTuber. That's the world of YouTube. Guys, as always, be better tomorrow because of what you do today. We'll see you on the next one.
This has been the Fallible Man Podcast, your home for everything man, husband, and father. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss a show. Head over to www.thefallibleman.com for more content and get your own Fallible Man gear.